Sometimes you read something and it just kind of sticks with you. Like, chapter 2 of Pasted Text really got me thinking about this whole idea of divine action. Like, how is God working in our lives, day to day? It's not always obvious, is it?
And that's what I find so compelling about this chapter. It's like, it's encouraging us to look beyond the surface level of things, to consider this whole other dimension that's always at play.
It's like we're so caught up in the everyday hustle that we miss the bigger picture sometimes.
Right. And the text uses this metaphor of a veil to describe that, which I think is so interesting. What are your thoughts on that?
It makes me think about how we can get so stuck in our routines, our habits, that we don't even realize there might be another way of seeing things, like we're blinded to what's right in front of us.
Exactly. We get fixated on the how of things happening. We forget to even ask why or even who might be orchestrating it all.
It reminds me of that story about Jesus appearing to his disciples after the resurrection. They were so caught up in their grief, they didn't even recognize him at first. And you'd think they'd be expecting something huge to happen.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you we can be completely surprised by God. It's a good reminder to stay open, to expect the unexpected. And for me, that's where faith comes in.
So it's not just about believing certain things, but about using that belief to see the world differently.
Yes. It's like this lens that helps us make sense of it all, like the text says, deciphering those actions that we might otherwise miss.
Okay, but what does that look like practically? Are we talking about waiting for these big dramatic miracles to happen? Or is it something more, subtle?
It's about finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. Recognizing that God's presence isn't limited to those big life-changing events. It's woven into the very fabric of existence,
Yeah.
Every single moment, like even just your daily commute, if you look at it through that lens of faith.
Instead of focusing on the traffic and getting frustrated, I could choose to see it as a chance to, practice patience or even just appreciate the scenery.
There you go. It's that shift in perspective, isn't it? Choosing to see those hidden depths in everything, even in those moments that might initially seem frustrating. And that actually leads to another point the text makes about creatures, even us, being feeble tools in God's hands.
Feeble tools! Honestly, that doesn't sound super flattering, does it? I mean, I'd like to think I've got a little more going on than a hammer in some cosmic toolbox.
Well, I think there are a few ways to interpret that. On the one hand, it's a reminder of our limitations as humans. We don't have all the answers and we can't control everything. But it also speaks to the power of surrendering to something bigger than ourselves, don't you think?
So maybe it's not about being perfect or having it all figured out, but about being open to being used for something greater than ourselves. That kind of reminds me of how some artists talk about their creative process. Like they're not forcing it, they're just letting it flow through them.
That's such a great analogy. And it makes me think of how the text compares creation to this coded message, just waiting to be deciphered. Like it's suggesting that the world is full of meaning if we just know how to look for it.
Yeah.
It really is. Like we need the right tools to crack the code.
So we should be more like, detectives, always searching for clues, trying to put the pieces together.
Exactly. Cultivating that sense of wonder, being open to discovering something new every single day.
It makes you wonder what we miss out on by holding on to our preconceived notions, But then the text talks about this idea of looking past the shadow of events to see the deeper meaning. What do you make of that, the shadow?
Well, think about it like this. It's easy to get caught up in what's right in front of us, those immediate circumstances, the ups and downs.
Yeah.
But that can distract us from the bigger picture, wouldn't you say?
So if I'm going through a job loss, instead of just focusing on the negative, I should be asking myself, okay, what can I learn from this?
Exactly. How can this experience, even if it's painful, help me grow? Help me align more closely with what really matters to me? It's not about ignoring the hard stuff, but about looking for the meaning that's woven in there.
But what about those situations where it just seems like there is no upside, when it's just purely awful?
That's when faith requires a different level of trust, wouldn't you say? It's about believing that even when we can't see the way forward, God is still working things out.
I'll be honest, it's a lot easier to have faith when things are going well. But holding on to that belief when life gets messy, that takes a whole lot of strength.
Absolutely. It's a journey, that's for sure. But remember what the text says about those difficult shadow experiences. They can actually be used for our sanctification, for our growth.
Sanctification, that's a pretty intense word. Does that mean becoming a saint? Because I'm not sure I'm quite there yet.
Well, to sanctify really just means to become more holy, more aligned with God's will. It's not about being perfect, but about this ongoing process of transformation.
Okay, that feels a little less daunting than, like, instant sainthood. But how do we even begin to do that? How do we go from feeling stuck in that shudder to actually experiencing that transformation?
Yeah, transformation definitely sounds a lot less intimidating than sanctification, right? But how do we actually make that shift happen? How do we move from those tough shadow times to actually experiencing that growth?
Well, I think that's where remembering the divine action in every single thing becomes so crucial. You know, how the text emphasizes that there's not a single moment when God isn't present. It's about really integrating that awareness into everything we do, not just those specific areas we've labeled as spiritual.
So you're saying, like, instead of compartmentalizing faith, it's about seeing everything through that lens.
Yeah.
Work, relationships, even just like, I don't know, making breakfast in the morning. Exactly. What if instead of adding more to your to-do list, it actually took something away? Think about it. That pressure to be perfect, to have all the answers. What if surrendering to this bigger picture actually brought more freedom, more joy even? The text even says that all helps to build a dwelling for us in that marvelous city.
Wait, hold on. You're saying every choice, every little thing we do is like adding a brick to this incredible city, this heavenly Jerusalem it talks about.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And it really highlights the responsibility we have, right? It's not just about our own individual journey anymore, but about contributing to something so much bigger than ourselves, something that encompasses all of creation.
Wow. It's almost, I don't know, overwhelming to think about, isn't it? But also kind of amazing. Like, even the smallest things matter.
It really is. And that's why this call to faith is so important, because it's in those small moments, those everyday acts of love and kindness, that our faith actually becomes real. You know, it's not just a concept anymore, but something we live out.
So it's less about just saying we believe and more about letting that belief actually change how we live, how we treat others, how we interact with the world around us.
That's it, exactly. It's about recognizing that spark of the divine in every single person we encounter, treating each other with respect, with dignity, seeing every interaction as an opportunity to reflect God's love, wouldn't you say?
You know what this reminds me of? That quote from Mother Teresa. Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love.
That's perfect. That really does capture the essence of what we've been talking about, doesn't it? Those small, everyday choices made with intention, with love.
Wow, this has been quite the deep dive. Makes you really look at the world a bit differently. Almost like this incredible tapestry, you know, with every thread playing a part in something much bigger.
That's the power of approaching life with faith, isn't it? It allows us to see beyond the surface, to find meaning even in the chaos, and to recognize that incredible connection we all share.
It certainly does give you a lot to think about. And for everyone listening, we always like to leave you with a little something to ponder. If every action, even the smallest ones, contributes to this heavenly city, what does that say about the impact we each have in this very moment?